Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of or even used tools like ChatGPT or ChatMDR or ChatFDA. These AI tools are relatively new and a lot of people struggle to use them correctly. So I've compiled some good tips to help you prompt, as we call it, these models. Now, what is prompting? Prompting is what we ask the AI model to do for us. And tip number one is we have to unlearn everything that we learned when we Googled. So if you're like me, you grew up with Google and Yahoo and Alta Vista, I'm really showing my age here, where you typed keywords and then you hope that the algorithm would find the articles that match those keywords. With a chatbot, I'm going to be using ChatMDR, but what I'm saying equally applies to ChatFDA or ChatGPT. You can just tell it what you want to do. So as an example, I could say device classification brachytherapy. It's keyword based, right? That's what I would do to Google and I might get some useful documents out of it. But here, what I might actually do is, what is the device classification of a brachytherapy applicator? Now, why is this significant? That is important because you ask the thing a question and then it has more context to go on than just a few keywords. So remember that AI models work with context. The second tip is that you have to realize that what you're having with this chatbot is a conversation. It's a chat, ChatMDR, ChatFDA, it's in the name. So you don't have to get everything right on your first prompt. So if you take the example I gave of a device classification, you can ask it for that and then say, show me the steps to get to this answer. And then it will show you how it did it. And you can keep on chatting in this way, ask for clarification, ask for proof, ask for a summary. And you can keep going like that, just like you would with a normal person. So the first answer doesn't have to be the final one. The third tip is that you can ask the AI to check itself in this conversation. So you may have heard of a process called hallucination, which is when AI models start to make things up when they have insufficient data. Now, dedicated tools like ChatFDA and ChatMDR circumvent this problem to a large extent by providing data from the regulation itself. But still, you may want to just ask, correct? And then the AI will retrace its steps and show you how it got to the answer, and sometimes may actually conclude that, that wasn't entirely correct. Tip number 4, and now we're going to get a little more advanced. Tip number 4 is that you can ask the AI to play a role. So, for example, let's say you work in R&D and you want to make a certain device claim. And you want to actually have a discussion with a regulatory professional in your company, but they're not always available because they're super busy. You can say, pretend that you are the Director of Regulatory Affairs in my company and we are having a discussion about this device claim I want to make. Then you can have the AI take on another role and actually play the part of someone else. It can be the devil's advocate as well. I want to write this rationale, try to shoot some holes in it. And then by doing that, you can very effectively test your reasoning. Tip number 5 is about the output format. Now, if you don't specify the AI how you want your output, it will just start to generate text. Depending on the subject, it may include bullet lists or not, but it just does what it thinks is best at that time. But you can prompt it to use a certain format. For example, you can ask for a checklist. You can ask for a bullet list. You can ask for a job description of your PRRC. You can tell in your prompt the AI what kind of output format you want, depending on where you need it. Whether you're going to paste it in a procedure or you're going to put something in an email. Of course, it's a completely different format. Tip number 6 is about translation and summary. You may have noticed if you put a request into ChatMDR that it tends to generate quite a lot of text, especially if you use the most intelligent model, the diamond model. It'll give you a very detailed description, which is fantastic unless you want to be brief. So then you can prompt the AI to say, Summarize this for my CEO who has very little time and does not know everything about the medical device regulation. And it will really shrink it down. If it's not short enough, you ask it to make it shorter. But what if the CEO only speaks German? Then you can also ask the AI to translate it into German. And it does that much better in my experience than something like Google Translate. So it's not just the output format, it's also the quantity of text and even the language that you can change by prompting. I've given you a number of prompting tips for algorithms like ChatGPT, ChatMDR, ChatIVDR and ChatFDA. But as I was doing research for this video, I was playing around with these algorithms, which is super fun to do, by the way. I really recommend it. And I thought, can it also generate a podcast script? And I asked it, I took a topic in ChatMDR, maybe a new MDCG guidance that came out. And then I asked it, can you write a podcast with a host and a guest who get interviewed? And it came up with a name, MDR Chats. It came up with a host, Oliver Harris. So I'm sorry to reveal to you, Oliver Harris is not real. He is a figment of the imagination of ChatMDR. And these two characters had a conversation about the subject, which was quite interesting actually.
Welcome to MDR Chats. I'm your host, Oliver Harris.
So if you follow these simple prompting tips, you too can create a podcast, or actually we're very curious to see what you will create.